A busy triple header of activity for TC America, powered by Skip Barber, concludes today with race 3 of the weekend from Sebring International Raceway, where you always have to respect those bumps, and today, respect the Florida heat as well. Hello, I'm Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. We've got Amanda Busick down in the pit lane for us on a hot and humid day in Central Florida. It was a double header of activity yesterday, so I'm sure these drivers will be thrilled just the one race here today, with temperatures already climbing into the upper 80s on the Fahrenheit scale, 37 degrees Celsius, and plenty of humidity in the air as well.
Yeah, it's been a toasty weekend, as you said, just to catch your breath last night, cool down a little bit, get ready for the final round of this triple header, and for Jeff Ricker, he's hoping to make it a triple hitter this weekend.
4 wins on the season, including 2 yesterday, looking to go 3 for 3, as you say, Calvin, and Jeff Ricker will start on pole position. Well, the third member of our broadcast team is sweating it out down there in the pit lane. Amanda, how's it going? What are you learning down on the grid?
Hey, Ryan, yeah, when you said respect the bumps, I said, I hope he says respect the heat, and you took the words right out of my mouth. It is sweaty, it is swampy, it is just downright nasty out here. And like you said, I was talking to the drivers about the double header yesterday. You'll see PJ Gronke right over my shoulder here. He's one of the only drivers that has a cool suit with him here this weekend. Also talked to him about his race. He was trying to manage oil temperatures inside of that race car and said that it was just a crap day, but he feels much better about what he can offer here today. I want to go over to our guy sitting in P4 to kick off. Eric Coons got that podium yesterday, looking to do that again today, but he said this is a track that seems familiar to me. He compared it to the Toronto Indy track that he's familiar with racing up in Canada. And moving over to CJ Sepulveda, I talked to the group of the Ricca Autosport guys before this race, CJ being one of them. He's got a new helmet this weekend, a new haircut, a new fire suit, and I'm told after yesterday's race, he has a new pair of underwear, is what he said to me talking about that slide. But he said he still has a race car to race here today. And Jeff Ricker said, what an amazing job by CJ there, guys. You'll remember he had that double podium in Sonoma. I'm sure he would love to wrap up this weekend starting right here in the third position. And on the front row, we owe an apology to this man right here, Mr. Mike Ogren, who's running here in P2. Guys, I will take credit for that, for saying his last name wrong for the 2 races, but we'll put it on record here today. Mike is a Skip Barber instructor that got the opportunity this weekend, not only from sponsorship, you'll see the Sebring International Golf Resort right here, but also from some personal sacrifices from Mike. Said that if he's going to have any opportunity on Jeff Ricker today, as you said, looking for a clean sleep for Jeff, he has to focus on the start here at Sebring, and that could be an opportunity to take down the guy that's crushing the points here this season.
Exciting times for sure, and yeah, big weekend to this point for Jeff Ricker. A pair of wins yesterday, and he'll have a bunch of his team cars trying to chase him down here in race number 3. Well, let's take a look back at how race number 2 played out from pole position. It was Jeff Ricker that led the field away, and really he was untroubled. The battles were further back in the pack, and they were fast and they were furious. Jonathan Neudorf, a big mover in the early going, got up to 4th, then slid back. This is why CJ Sepulveda needs the new pair of underwear. That was a scary moment on just the second lap of the race. He was able to make the save, continued on, and actually had a pretty good race, all things considered. As mentioned, Jeff Ricker more or less untroubled at the front of the field, but his teammates were fighting. PJ Gronke dealing with some overheating issues, as Amanda alluded to during the second race of the day. He faded from running as high as 2nd at one point, all the way back to 6th, and he'll look to regroup here in race number 3, but at the very front, it was Jeff Ricker that cruised to his 4th win of the season. Mike Ogren chasing him home, finishing in 2nd. And that's how race 2 wrapped up yesterday, getting ready for race number 3. And we're just seconds away now, Calvin, from starting the engines in these 9 touring cars. And look, the heat is a big factor, certainly for the drivers, but for these cars that share a lot of components with their road-going counterparts, heat is always something that has to be managed at the touring car level.
It does. We saw cars yesterday that ideally would be trying to pick up the draft down the long straightaways here, but they elected to stay in the cleaner air and try and get some air to the front end of these race cars. Our winner yesterday, Jeff Ricker, said it was all about managing the heat and the temperature in his race car, and he needs to do it from the pole here today. He needs to get the jump, get out front, manage the race.
That'll be the goal. He's done it perfectly through the first 2 races here this weekend. We did see in race 2 that starting on the inside of row 2 could be beneficial. PJ briefly got to second place in the first lap yesterday. Any lessons that we could take away from that?
Well, I think CJ Sepulveda would have been looking at that and trying to replicate that, cut and paste the move that PJ did on the start, trying to get the inside of Ogren as they head down into turn 1. Not going to be easy. You know that Ogren's going to also be thinking about what happened in race 2 yesterday, allowing one of the Hyundais to separate him from Jeff Ricker. Then he had to go back on the attack, and Jeff Ricker's basically gone and managing the pace and the gap at the front. So for Ogren, I think he's got to think about how do I get a little bit of a jump here, try and run side by side through turn 1, and then he may have a chance before we get to Christensen Corner, which is turn 3.
It's Mike Ogren's first appearance in the championship this season. He's made sporadic starts over the years dating back to 2019, but does bring a lot of track knowledge, and while that's always valuable, it's maybe especially so here at Sebring, given the nuances of this track.
Oh, big time. I mean, knowing where the bumps are, where the big ones are, how to miss those, and you know, positioning the race car is so important through many of the corners here. So yes, I think he's putting in a great performance. The Acura seems to be pretty strong. It seems like the Hyundai still have the edge when you look at their championship leader there, Jeff Ricker, what he can do with that race car.
Rover Pole Award winner Jeff Ricker for the 3rd straight race. He'll lead the field to green. Mike Ogren alongside for the Skip Barber Racing Team in his Acura. Then you find CJ Sepulveda and Eric Coons, a couple of Hyundai teammates back there in row number 2. Connor Attrell and PJ Gronke will share row number 3. Then we get to row 4, which features the first of the Toyota Corollas development project here this year. Antonio Costantino and Jonathan Newdorf, who just got done qualifying for Pirelli GT4 America a few moments ago. James Klein is starting out back. Had a really good run, especially in race number 1, where he was mixing it up with the other Toyota Corollas that come into this race knowing they're going to be on the back foot a little bit. Toyota doing a lot of work behind the scenes, Calvin, trying to bring a little bit more performance, especially from that power plant, to the table. The upgrades they had hoped to unveil here at Sebring just weren't quite ready, so they go back to the previous spec. Consequently, the car struggling down the straights, but we've seen, if driven well in the corners, they can hang with those Hyundais, and Jonathan Newdorf on the start yesterday really exemplified that.
Yeah, certainly exciting to see him get his elbows out early and get that track position. Obviously, as soon as we got to the fast bits of this racetrack, he was vulnerable, but it's a learning curve. I think JMF Motorsports are pretty buoyant about the potential with this race car. It's strictly a straight line speed thing. Yes, they attempted to run a little bit more turbo here this weekend. Didn't work out in testing, because they've had to sort of like curtail that for now. But you know they're going to have their thinking caps on, try to figure out how do we get a bit more pace. But I think what happens is when you're struggling and you're digging deep, like the 2 drivers are with JMF, there's a good inter-team rivalry there. They're going to push each other. And maybe when they get that speed down the straightaways, suddenly they've got the race cars sorted out, and they can be a real factor for podiums and maybe race victories.
Several years ago, I remember Scott Dixon in IndyCar was saddled with an engine that wasn't competitive, but that's where he taught himself how to save fuel,
Right.
how to extract more in terms of keeping your momentum up, your rolling speed up, and then all of a sudden when the power kicked in later in his career, all of those were lessons that could carry forward. So that's what the JMF team and the Skip Barber team will be thinking about as they try and continue the development project for Toyota with this Corolla that debuted this year back in Sonoma. But right now, our eyes are on the front row with the Rover Pole Award winner, Jeff Ricker, approaching the VP acceleration zone. Keep an eye on that white Hyundai right of the screen. He's got the Acura to his outside, and he steps on it. Sepulveda right there, hot on his heels. He'll jump to the inside of Ogren. challenging for the second spot, and Coons also looking aggressive at the start. Thought about making it 3 wide. Will settle back in. Sepulveda is up to second. Ogren goes wide, and here comes Coons in the fight for third.
Oh,
wow!
Big wild move there by Ogren, trying to come back across the racetrack and goes on the attack immediately in the brake zone. Almost a cut and paste from what we saw here yesterday when it was PJ Gronke who got the jump on Ogren at the start. So Ogren looks like he's a little frustrated and immediately went on the attack.
CJ wasn't wanting to give that up, but ultimately had no choice but to concede that position. Ogren back up to second. That's allowed Ricka to escape. But look at this. Hurricane of cars coming down the run to the hairpin. Ogren forced to go on the defensive, and it's side by side further back. Sepulveda forced to the outside. Charging up the inside is Coons as they fight for position.
Big bold move there by Coons down into the inside into that brake zone for turn 7. So he's up on the wheel early. He wants another podium run here today.
Atrell and Gronke also scrapping in this battle pack. Ogren starting to get clear of these Hyundais. He has been solidly the second fastest driver of the weekend, behind only Jeff Ricka. Looked vulnerable there at the start, but was able to get back to second, and now leaves it to the Hyundais to fight it out.
PJ really wide there through turn 12.
My goodness, was he ever. Great save. And he'll continue to push on, but he's lost a lot of ground and actually now looks a bit vulnerable to the charging Toyotas.
Yeah, he certainly does. He just needs to settle in a little bit. The Hyundai certainly got the pace when we get to the Ullman straightaway to gap those Toyotas that are hot on his heels right now. But what a start for Jeff Ricka. Through the first sector, he was basically 1.8 seconds clear of the field through the first sector alone on that first lap because they were scrapping it out behind him.
Another half second to that advantage through the second sector. There he comes in the Liqui Moly sponsored machine at the front of this field. Ogren there for the Skip Barber racing team in the primarily gray Acura Integra. Then in third, how about the jump from Coons, who did not have the track position at the start of the race, qualified fourth, but he's up that spot now, running solidly in the third position.
Yeah, CJ there trying to go back on the attack to get after his teammate and claim that final podium spot. He timed that start really, really well with his team boss and team leader immediately in front of him from that inside lane down into turn 1. He was hot on his bumper there. And Ogren just a little bit late getting to power, and I think he kind of realized he made a big mistake, but straightened it out by the time they got to turn 5.
JMF Motorsports teammates side by side through turn number 1. That's Neudorf and Costantino. Neudorf around the outside here. Costantino has the preferred lane, but Neudorf able to roll a lot of speed through there, up and over the curb, and it looks like he will take that spot away.
A little bit wide there going through turn 5, but he does get the track position. This has allowed climbers to get right on the tail of the 2 JMF Toyotas once again.
Neudorf perhaps the slight advantage of having just been on track in Pirelli GT4 America qualifying, where he was quick for the JMF team. It's an Aston, much different platform in the GT4 level than what he's driving here, but seat time is seat time, and maybe again, especially so here at Sebring. There's so much to learn about this place that is unlike just about anything else you'll find outside of maybe a temporary street course.
See if PJ Gronke can get into his rhythm here and just fine-tune his lap a little bit and try and get back onto the pace of his teammates. He just ran the fastest sector of anyone. In fact, he was 4/10 quicker than our leader right now. So Gronke's got pace in that car. I think if he can just tidy things up a little bit, he's still learning this new platform, but the speed and potential is there if he can just get really tight with hitting his marks each and every lap.
2 podiums on the season for PJ Gronke, including race 1 of the weekend yesterday. Had those overheating issues in race 2 that cost him some performance, and he dropped back down to 6th. Which is where he finds himself here in the early stages of the 3rd race of the weekend. This is a triple header weekend, one of 2 on the calendar this year for TC America, powered by Skip Barber.
Looks like Ogren is really not escaping that second Hyundai pack as much as he did yesterday. So Coons, Sepulveda, Atrell are really close enough. They can be thinking about maybe we can make it a 1-2 or 1-2-3 finish here for Hyundai today. Ogren's got his work cut out for him.
He does indeed. Jeff Ricka with the new fastest lap of the race the last time by at a 2:22.337. Chasing pack behind him. Ogren ran I'm sorry, that's their best lap, which in the case was the last lap there for Ricka. Ogren just ran a 2:27.760, about 0.4 of a second off.
Yeah, and PJ, for example, had 2 really good first sectors. Then you see the gap. The light blue Hyundai there in the backdrop coming through turn 5 had a really poor third sector. So again, I think if he can just tighten things up and be a bit more consistent, the pace is there for PJ to get back with these guys. Look at this down into turn 7. Kunz to the inside. Ogren definitely looks vulnerable here on day 2 and race 3 of the weekend.
Ogren saw Kunz coming, opened up the wheel to give a little space there, and then was able to get the power down and accelerate away. Managed to hang on to that position, but only barely so. Eric Kunz, who scored his first career podium in TC America in race 2 yesterday evening, finished in 3rd, looking to do at least 1 spot better now.
Yeah, and he's really tidy with his drive, and he seems to be very disciplined, hitting his marks. Nice, calm and cool, relatively, with this heat of here at Sebring.
Reigning Sports Car Club of Canada TCA champion Eric Kunz. No stranger to winning in a front-wheel drive touring car.
Part of the racetrack you can really attack through here. Just try and get the change of direction so you can actually get a little bit more over to the left right there to widen the entry and the radius through turn 16. Allows you to get back to power maybe a little bit sooner.
Down this long Oldman straight. This will test the horsepower of the race car. You see them popping out of line. We saw this a lot yesterday, and this is about that heat management, right, Cal?
Yeah, I think so. Once you get into sort of like 4 or 5 laps into this race, you know, you're really going to have to be conscious of that because it's just going to continue to climb.
Saw a good look at the effect of the world-famous bumps here at Sebring. These cars bouncing around like someone on a pogo stick almost. It's a wild ride, especially turn 17 and then here in turn 1 where you're using that old pavement from the Hendricks Army Airfield Air Base, built originally in the 1940s.
Yeah, turn 17 pretty much all the way through, and certainly the exit of turn 1. Then we see Kunz there a little bit wide through turn 4, allows his teammate to tighten up a little bit. The trails drop back about half a second on his 2 teammates in front of him. CJ's got a bit of a run here. Let's see what Kunz does in terms of his approach to the brake zone. Maybe gets a bit proactive and adopts that middle of the road, which he does right there. CJ on the grippier part of the racetrack, but it's a little bit bumpier also over on the left-hand side there into that brake zone for turn 7.
Such an interesting collection of talent from wildly different backgrounds. Mike Ogren, the club racer, so many laps here at Sebring, calls the Sarasota area of Florida home. Then you get Eric Kunz, touring car champion in Canada, coming down to race here in TC America for the first time this year. CJ Sepulveda from Puerto Rico, comes from a racing family on that island, but very limited experience racing at this level. Connor Attrell, another Canadian third-generation racing driver, all coming together here in TC America this year, at least for part of the schedule. None of these 4 running a full season, interestingly enough, this year.
Ogren's kind of got his head down here, and but a small margin through the first couple of sectors, but looks like here in sector 3 they're coming back at him a little bit more.
Just past 9 minutes into this race, and a chance to check in with Amanda down in the pit lane.
Hey guys, yeah, you were just talking about the different guys running in this series that aren't on a full season entries, and one of those being CJ Sepulveda. I made a little, guys, something happening there?
Yeah, we saw Ogren get wide, and it cost him a couple of spots through turn 17.
And he's got a puncture. Yeah, they didn't have any front end when he turned into 17 there. I thought there may be a technical issue because he was so wide. You can see the right front has got cut down, so that changes the complexion immediately for those final podium finishes.
And for Mike, this is brutal timing because it happened right at the tail end of the lap at a place where he couldn't commit to getting to the pit lane, and it's a long way around, 3.7 miles or thereabouts, to get this car back to the pits.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal. It's going to shred that thing apart within a few more corners, just running the rim right down on the cogs and ELX just to bail out and find a safe haven here on the racetrack. Probably, I think that's the shortcut possibly over to turn 14 that he may be taking.
Wow, that's tough there for Mike, and he'll pull off to the side and preserve that race car. I think maybe Amanda, a chance now to finish up on that report.
Yeah, I was just going to add on CJ Sepulveda in not being a full season entry. I was recapping Sonoma with him, and he just called it an absolute magical experience. That was actually the only race that CJ had scheduled for this year, and then he got a call from Victor Gonzalez as well as his sponsor, and they put together the deal this week. And I asked CJ if there was any chance at another race this season. He said, well, it's going to be depending on how I do here in Sebring, but if there's a chance, I'm hoping it'll be Indy.
Very cool. Great start to his season, finishing on the podium in both of the first two races this year, a third and a second. He's been fifth in both races here at Sebring, but right now running in podium contention. He's got his eyes on perhaps getting up to second. Let's look at this again here, Calvin, and you caught this right away.
Yeah, you can see there just a little wiggle there, and he's just trying to figure out what is going on. He doesn't have the platform on the front end. When he went to the brake pedal, right front is down. And there you see him just skate wide, and all of the Hyundais kind of scream by him there.
Hate to see it for Mike, who has been super strong here this weekend, but the race continues on, and this is second and third. That's in the balance. Coons and Sepulveda side by side down the Ullman Straight. Sepulveda.
You think you can swing across there, but that wall hangs on there for a long, long time. And if you're on the right-hand side of the road, you can end up with nowhere to go. So they judged it nicely, the two teammates, and switch positions here for P2 and P3.
So CJ up to second now. That would match his career best results. Coons back to third as he looks for back-to-back podiums, having scored his first one in race 2 yesterday.
Trella's hanging in there. Oh, here we go. That is really tight there down into turn 3, Christensen corner. Really nice move there by Coons down at the inside and makes it stick. This is going to allow a Trell to close up on this pairing right in front of him. He's going to be side by side now on the run down to turn 7.
Here comes Connor Trell, who is a race winner in TC America. Won the season finale, race 2 at Indianapolis a year ago. He's to the outside of CJ Sepulveda in the run down to the hairpin, but CJ does fend him off.
PJ's hanging in there in the backdrop. PJ Gronke driving the number 76 Hyundai, the pretty much pale blue car there. You just see him coming to shot there. He's putting together some nice consistent laps.
Doing a good job, like you say, making headway here over the past few laps. PJ ran a 2:23.3 last time. And while these guys have been squabbling, that has definitely allowed him to close that gap. Coons now, after dropping that spot at the tail end of the last lap, has some breathing room because Trell and Sepulveda are duking it out.
Yeah, I think Sepulveda's attention is right now defending from behind rather than attacking and focusing forward. Like his angle there, you get running a little bit more of that room that you have on driver's left as you come through 13, 14, 15, 16, and sets up this run down the Ullman straightaway, so he gets a really good run there.
Great recovery from Coons. That was a bold move that he made, wasn't it, to get to the inside of Sepulveda and get that second spot back.
Yeah, I'm impressed with his racecraft. He seems to be very, you know, he makes a move and it's very, you know, confident. He doesn't get in that no man's land where you're kind of putting the nose in where it's not really wanted, and then you get in a weird dynamic with the competitor you're trying to get around. He seems pretty determined and forceful and makes it clean.
An amazing story like we told yesterday. Just went arrive and drive karting. That was his introduction to motorsports. Did that about 5 years ago. And 5 years later finds himself a national champion at the touring car level up in Canada. Suffers from an extremely rare condition, caposiform lymphangiomatosis, which is a very complex disease that leads to chronic severe pain. he's one of fewer than 100 known patients of this condition worldwide, to give you an idea of just how rare it is. And he uses his motorsport as a way to raise awareness, not just for his condition, but for rare diseases in general. It's one of the challenges in seeking a cure to something when so few people are suffering from it. Hard to get the attention that's needed. But Eric has done a really good job with his Driven Living charity of helping to raise awareness and raise funds. drivenliving.ca if you'd like more information about the great work that they're doing.
Yeah, that's a great story. Oh, it's also a story developing here as PJ Gronke's kind of marched back up to this pack. Had a really poor first lap, of course, got dropped back on the opening lap, but he's got his head down and hitting his marks and doing a really solid job here. Maybe a factor here for a podium even.
He'll be thinking that. He's not one to give up easily. Full season entrant this year, which is good. This came together very late for PJ Gronke here for 2025. After a TCA championship last year, left him thinking maybe it's time to hang up the helmet. And I think it came down basically to the awards banquet last year, where he was, in his speech, he had told me, if I feel like I'm done in that moment, I'll say it and I'll be done. And if I don't, I won't say it and I'll be back. And he didn't say it. And back he is, which is fantastic. One of the great personalities in this paddock for quite a few years.
Yeah, I think he's really a testament to just hard work, determination, being likable, and having people support you in any way. And he puts a lot of his partners together and gives them a great return on their investment. He's a fun personality, as you said, and drives really hard. And it came together late, but hats off to Hyundai for a bit of support. Jeff Ricker for one, and PJ as part of his group. And I think it's really a great story for this 2025 season.
JMF Motorsports teammates running nose to tail. It's Jonathan Neudorf leading Antonio Costantino. Let's hear a little bit more about them with Amanda.
Yeah, I'm really loving the story of this team this season. JFF Motorsports was launched in 2020 by John Farrow, and this season alone they have 5 different cars racing across 3 different series. Of course, we're watching these 2 guys right here in TC. Well, I talked to him about one of the newest drivers in the stable, Antonio Costantino, and John said that he was just immediately impressed with Antonio. He invited him to a camp up in Canada. There wasn't a lot of track time, but in the classroom, John said, this is where Antonio really impressed him. He was invited back for a private test session, and John said he was just blown out of the water. He has high hopes for Antonio, said we'll probably see him in the GT4 ranks next season, and after that, probably GT3 in the season after. But John is one true to his word, guys. We can see how Mackay Stevens is efforting that GT3 entry that they have this season, but it's all team effort. I go back to COTA when Mackay Stevens was wearing a helmet and going over the wall during the Lone Star 3 hours. So what a team that John Farrow has put together, and you can tell between these teammates as well.
It's a fantastic story. Thanks, Amanda. Antonio racing at the pro level for the first time here in 2025. Comes from a racing family. His dad was a club racer, primarily in the SCCA GTL class. And Antonio's done quite a bit of open wheel racing, Formula Fords and F1600, things like that. Was actually part of the Team Canada contingent that went over to contest the Formula Ford Festival and Walter Hayes Trophy just last year.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly putting his groundwork. Here we see PJ, though, on the attack, so we focus back on this battle. PJ's caught them. He's just trying to figure out a way. Sometimes he seems like he overdrives the middle of the corner a little bit. He's obviously conscious of the temps, electing not to pick up the draft there. There you see him trying to get some clean air on the front of his race car.
Done a great job to catch this group. All of these cars equally prepared, of course, all operated out of the Ricca Autosport stable.
It's where you have to be so disciplined through here, just rolling speed through the middle of this corner. Then this one, turn 5, you lean on the car too much, it just can get away from you, get up on that curb. All of these drivers kept it nice and tidy through there on that lap.
Did you have a favorite section of this track?
I like the sector coming up. So we got big break zone down here. So if you're in the middle of a pack, there's always some action, maybe some defending, maybe attacking. And then beautiful rhythm through this next little flowing section up through from this point forward. You're just flat out, of course, all the way into the break zone from Cunningham. But from Cunningham over to Tower, I just love the flow through there. And I always felt like turn 13, the approach into Tower Corner, was really tricky. Your footwork had to be so spot on. You couldn't afford to overslow the car. You had to be really smooth with your brake application and then picking up the throttle nice and early. It's one of those corners that tempts you to try and attack a little bit more, but that is not always rewarding. So there's a real sweet spot there in the approach to that corner.
Battle joined once again for 6th and 7th. Neudorf has it. Costantino, his teammate, right there in his tire tracks. Two impressive youngsters with bright futures ahead of them.
Yeah, these two drivers seem so evenly matched. It's got to be a fun little inter-team rivalry going on as we focus back on this battle for P2. Jeff Ricker up the road to the tune of now 9 seconds, just dominating this third event of the weekend, looking for a triple sweep here, but his teammates are battling out. Looks like those final podium spots are going to be between Koons and Sepulveda.
What a season Jeff's putting together. Wins in both races at Sonoma, second in both races at Circuit of the Americas to a driver that he helped bring over to the States, Kyumin Kim from South Korea. Kyumin just doing the one-off there, and now here at Sebring, Jeff could make it 3 for 3 and 5 wins on the season if he can hang on for the final 3.5 minutes. Eric Koons trying to hang on as well. Just when it looked like he might have that second place in the bag, CJ Sepulveda has reeled him back in.
He is right there. Looks nice and clean and tidy there through turn 1, not overdriving the race car, just managing it perfectly. Just want to give a shout out to Jeff Ricker and that whole team. When you come to Sebring, this can be a car breaker just because of the physical nature of the racetrack, but then you add on these temperatures to have this kind of armada of race cars running so consistently and reliably is really a testimony to that team.
Definitely, and all the prep they do. These cars are prepared there. They are the official prep shop for Hyundai as far as this TC spec car. Interesting that one of them, at least, has been shipped over to Germany and will be taking part in the 24 hours of the Nürburgring next month. Jeff part of the driving lineup of that with some world-class drivers from all around the world. But for the first time racing a car that his own shop has prepared at that event. Jeff, no stranger to that grueling 24-hour race on the Nordschleife.
Look at this. Koons has done a really nice job. Seems to be managing the emotions nicely, not overdriving the car. Sepulveda, though, I think he's got pace. Drops a wheel a little bit. That may have cost him a little bit of an acceleration run down this flat-out section. Beautiful rhythm to this next little part. This is a fun part of the racetrack as well. It's figuring out the pros and cons, the concertina effect if you attack the entry, how much do you lose on exit. This is where you see Sepulveda there really running that wider approach, getting over to driver's left before he swings over to the apex there for 16.
Now this is where he grabbed that second spot earlier in the race, only for Koons to take it back down in turns 3 and 4 later on in the following lap. Sepulveda gets a decent run down the Ullman straight, not close enough to make a lunge this time. As the white flag waves above Sebring International Raceway, Jeff Ricker by 9.5 seconds over his teammates. And look at the battle coming out of Sunset Bend for second and third. Koons feeling the heat, not just the Florida heat, but also CJ Sepulveda closing in here on the final lap.
He is, and Gronke looks a little bit closer to a trail as well, so these teammates are duking it out here over this final lap.
Koons has fought hard to get this position. No surprise that he has covered off the inside move here the last few laps. That's where he was able to take the second spot back.
Wide. Sepulveda looks to the inside. Koons opened up and he runs wide. This might make it vulnerable for Trell and Gronke as well. It got ahead of steam here, heading down the straightaway towards turn 7. Sepulveda, nice move there, a little aggressive. I think it made Koons miss his marks, probably a little bit gray and marbly offline. He runs wide. Here comes a trail down the inside. He can feel a podium as well right now on his teammate.
That's how fast the tables can turn. In TC America, a little side-to-side contact there between the two teammates. And Trell fighting to get up onto the podium, and he grabs that third spot. And now PJ Gronke is lining up Eric Coons.
Well, the teammates had kept it clean after 3 hard races here this weekend. This is turn 10. Coons trying to rebound here. It was a great opportunistic move there by Sepulveda to get that gap.
It was indeed. He was aggressive. He saw the opening. He went for it. Coons caught off guard, and it has cost him dearly. He's dropped not 1 but 2 spots. Now trying to fight back. It looks like he's been able to gap Gronke a bit, and that has allowed him to zero in on a trail, but he's running out of chances if he's going to get that podium spot.
Here we go, setting up through 16. Here we go. Who's going to get the run? Coons trying to get the power down early. Get into the draft here. Will he elect to just stay in and deal with the temperature? Spike possibilities here, needing the draft here to be in position into that brake zone for turn 17. Sunset Bend coming up.
Jeff Rica already approaching Sunset Bend. He's 8 seconds ahead of his teammate CJ Sepulveda. Here's the move to the outside from Coons. But coming to the checkered flag, Jeff Rica slows the car to a crawl to greet his team. He sweeps the weekend at Sebring International Raceway. Sepulveda slows on the final lap, but Trell is through to second. Sepulveda does take third. Gronke is through on Coons. It's all changing on the final lap, despite the fact that it's Hyundai 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Meantime, Neudorf and Costantino coming through the final corner now, looking for the checkered flag, and it looks like Neudorf will hang on, narrowly edging his teammate. James Klimas about 10 seconds or so behind in the 8th spot, but how about that last lap drama?
I wonder if Sepulveda actually got into that temperature spike and lost some power there on the run to the checkered flag.
Unbelievable. A Trell up to the podium in unexpected fashion. Jeff Rica takes the victory, his 5th of the season, 3rd in a row. Through 5 races, he's finished no worse than 2nd. And he has this championship, it would appear, on lockdown here at a very early stage of the season. But it all went up for grabs behind him.
It's
very
a great photo op
unexpected
for the team.
Yeah, that's true.
Top 5.
Let's take a look back at a dramatic final lap. This was the lunge up the inside. Was there contact? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Yeah, I think Coons just gave him a little bit of room, then got out in the grey, didn't have the grip, runs out, and then it gets a little bit spicy down into turn 7. And then coming to the stripe on the exit turn 17. I mean, Sepulveda looked like he was in great shape just to finish the run and claim P2, but looked like some kind of power issue to me running to the line.
Yes. Very sudden.
I think it was a mistake. He was basically on the inside of the racetrack, so it wasn't like he ran wide.
I think we have a look at that final turn here. Sepulveda was ahead of these two. It's a Trell to the inside. Coons got stuck out really wide. That's what opened the door for Gronke to get through, interestingly. Rica comes through and takes the checkered flag, and already you can see Sepulveda slow into the inside. A Trell comes blasting through, and Gronke very nearly got him too. It was only 73 thousandths of a second between Sepulveda and Gronke for the final step of the podium.
Yeah, that was wild.
Lots of questions we're going to need to get some answers to here post-race in what was a dramatic finish to a race that was thoroughly dominated by Jeff Rica. He too backed off tremendously on that final lap. That might just have been about trying to set up the photo finish you alluded to, Cal. Or perhaps the heat could have gotten to the number 78 car too.
They're running offline, just trying to pick up a few of those marbles, which adds weight to the car and a little bit of ride height possibly for post-race tech, but a really solid day for the whole group.
My goodness. Well, time to look at the way this race concluded. 6.5 seconds is the final margin of victory for Jeff Rica, ahead of Connor Ractrell, who came through on the final lap in the final corner to take second place. Sepulveda, as you can see by the narrowest of margins, hangs on to the final step of the podium. PJ Gronke recovering somewhat from a disappointing run to 6th in race 2 yesterday. He'll finish 4th for the 3rd time this year here in the 3rd race of the weekend. Coons will have to settle for 5th after running as high as 2nd. Newdorf, Costantino, Klimas 6th, 7th, and 8th. And Mike Ogren had the puncture, had to pull out of the race early, and will finish 9th in the final race of the weekend. Cars have arrived in Parc Fermé. That's Greg Guild there to congratulate Jeff Ricka on a fantastic run. My goodness, what a start to the season it's been for him, and he'll be thrilled as well that his team has swept the top 5 positions. They have strength in numbers, but that's the first time they've been able to manage that this season. Waiting for the smile to break out there for Jeff.
Where's the smile?
There it is. Courtesy of our own Amanda Busick. Let's hear from Jeff Ricka now.
Hey, Jeff, it was a sweep of the weekend here in Sebring, and the guys were already talking a little bit about championship. I know we don't want to get there yet, but what will your thoughts be leaving Sebring?
I mean, a lot of relief, you could say, going into VIR. I think the Toyotas and the Honda, the Acura is going to get a little bit faster as we go on. So for sure, I'm going to take as many points as I can. That's key, and then just hang on for the rest of the season. So.
Congratulations, Jeff, and I'm going to get Connor heading this way as he got that podium right there at the end, up into the runner-up spot. Connor, when you saw all of that happening on the last lap, what did you think?
I knew I needed to give them some room later in the race, and just wanted to be ready when something happened, and something happened. I don't know what happened to CJ at the end there, but glad he still got 3rd. It was a heated battle out there, so it's nice to be able to represent Hyundai. All the boys come together, put on a good show, so I had a great time.
Congratulations on your first podium. We're going to head down to VIR next, and as you just think of this season, I know VIR will be another new stop for you. How will you prep for that?
So just going to be focused. Might come to VIR, might just be Barber for me on the next one, but I'm going to do my best to try to get out to more. I'm hooked, and it's great racing. So
this was a good way to do that. You show them what you're possible of. And CJ, I'm going to have you step in here because I want to know what happened. I know you're probably gutted there, but still a podium here in Sebring. What happened?
So yeah, most of the race I was behind Eric. I feel like I had a pretty good grip on him most of the time. And when it was the last lap, it was take it or leave it. So I took the chance. We had a little contact. It's a contact sport, but I was told to give it back. I'm still happy to be in the podium. I'm happy to be here. And yeah, just very excited to see what comes next, so I'm happy.
Congratulations to CJ Sepulveda. As I said in our report earlier, he hopes that it'll be a dream come true and race at Indianapolis.
It's interesting to hear that about the contact. I don't remember seeing it. He did let a car through, but it wasn't Eric.
Eric's. It's hard to fix that one. But yeah, it was tight there going into turn 5. I didn't see a bump, but maybe there was something. The stewards had another look at it.
Highlights of a dramatic 3rd race of the weekend for TC America, powered by Skip Barber. Wild rides on that opening lap further back in the pack, and wild ride there from PJ Gronke. Got out wide. That cost him some track position. He had to fight back to get into the mix. JMF teammates side by side for a moment. In the early stages, Mike Ogren looking really strong. Had a puncture, though, to the right front. Ultimately failed to finish the race after a strong weekend through the first 2 races. While Jeff Ricka had this race on lockdown, his teammates were busy battling amongst themselves. Trell, Sepulveda, Gronke, and Coons all swapping positions over the course of this race, dropping wheels, pushing these cars to their very limits. Late lunge to the inside, maybe a little contact there from CJ Sepulveda into Eric Coons. That cost Coons a little bit. Coming to the checkered flag, Jeff Ricka slows to a crawl to greet his crew. It's a perfect weekend for Jeff, 3 for 3. Meanwhile, the battle for the final couple steps on the podium was a fierce one. Trell came through to take 2nd. Sepulveda in 3rd ahead of Gronke as we wrap up a great weekend of racing for TC America, powered by Skip Barber.